Joining me now in the studio is Anthony Mahon, Chair of the Family Law Section of the Law Society. Also in the studio, Murray Bacon, former Chairman of the North Shore Men's Centre and someone who's been through the family court and knows the child support system well. Welcome to you both. First of all, Murray, had these changes been in place when you were in the midst of child support, dealing with child support, what sort of a difference could they have made to your life and your children's lives?
I believe that I would have been able to plan the custody of the children rather than simply being given the custody and having it taken away according to my ex-wife's desires at the time.
So a bit more control?
Well, it would have enabled me to negotiate and take part in decisions about the care of the children rather than me caring for them when she allowed me to and not being able to care for them when she took them back again.
Anthony, which of these proposals do you think will make the most significant difference if they actually are brought in?
Well, Greg, I think that the sliding scale idea, which they've introduced in Australia for parents when there's a substantial sharing of care, at the moment, if you've got your children, I say from every fortnight from Wednesday night till Monday morning, you've got 5 days out of 14 and the other 9 with the other parent, and you have half the holidays, you just come under that rule that says you must have more than 40% of the time in a year to actually have some reduction in child support. In Australia, they've reduced that percentage down to 14%. So parents who spend 3 days a fortnight with their children on a long weekend, spend a lot of money on their children, they'll get some relief.
Which is fine and well in theory, but of course all that stuff has to be monitored to make sure that's exactly happening. How do you do that?
That is difficult. If there's a dispute about the time that the children are spending with you as a parent, in the end it has to be the family court that makes an order, so you have that record. The advantage of child support, of course, is that it's an automatic thing. Before it came in 91, I remember the cases. You had to go to court and argue about should you have a car that expensive and how much is this for your budget. Each case was dealt with individually by a family court. That's just not possible to do. So there are some good things about child support. It just needs to be more flexible, and having a cut-off at a particular percentage of time is unrealistic 20 years later when many families share the care of their children.
Murray, in your situation, presumably, in most situations, you would hope it's about what's best for the child, but at some point, fairly quickly in proceedings, it does become about money, about how much money you're paying or how much money perhaps the other partner wants, doesn't it? That's sort of unavoidable.
Well, in the real world, both parents should be able to take care of their own interests, and both the family court and the child support system should facilitate a straightforward negotiation and then follow through by being able to enforce the result of that negotiation.
Anthony, is that a realistic wish? It's a great idea, but there are so many variables. How much parents are earning, if both parents are earning, how many children are, the frequency of having them, locality, so many things come into play here that can you ever really make it a fair thing right across the board?
I think the important thing for parents in planning is certainty. If you can give them a sense of certainty and there's an overall sense of fairness, there are always going to be exceptional cases, and perhaps those are the cases that need to go to the family court to be resolved. But you're right, it's impossible to have a one-size-fits-all because there are so many different types of parenting. Parents have other families they have responsibilities for, but these changes are a step forward, and Australia's experience is that when they brought their changes in, they thought that the parents who were losing money on occasions because there was a lower threshold would be very unhappy. Well, there were those occasions, but overall it was quite positively received. And the advantage of it means there's a sense of fairness for both parents in the financial contribution, and it enables parents to trust each other more and have more flexibility in their discussions. In our cases, we end up often with a parent very reluctant to agree to more time because of the effect on the child support. I think that will be a huge step forward in enabling parents, as you say, to be able to trust each other to come to a more flexible arrangement.
Has that been your experience as well when you were in the system as well, Murray?
Well, we could make agreements, but at the end of the day, I could never have any confidence that the agreements would ever be enforced. So in the end, I came to the conclusion it was a waste of time even trying to make an agreement where I knew from both mine and other people's experiences that the enforcement would never ever follow through.
At the moment, you've got two parents, let's say, in theory, both earning reasonably good money. Mum, for the sake of argument, because that usually is the case, is the primary caregiver, has the child well over half the time, forget your 40%, whatever. Shouldn't they both be contributing?
I think they should.
They don't, though.
In those cases, they don't.
Well, not always.
No, not always.
No.
But I think that there is a discussion point here about whether, in a case where there's a primary parent who has most of the time with the children, whether they should contribute something as well. Because the idea of child support is you are paying to half the costs of the child is an expectation that that primary parent in the more traditional arrangement will be contributing. I think the key is thresholds and the percentages that you're using. And it is possible with modern systems, which are beyond me as a family lawyer, that takes a tax lawyer, to actually work out a system that does give an obligation on both parents to be contributing. It
is also possible, if you've that way inclined, to completely avoid the payments altogether, making out your income is nothing, therefore 18% or whatever you're paying for the amount of children you're paying for is nothing, and you get away with paying nothing. How do you get around loopholes like that?
That is difficult, and I think that the changes are proposing a more flexibility there in terms of being able to take into account potential earning capacity and challenge that. At the moment, what you do is you go before a review officer of child support who will try and look at that situation and take into account the way that a party's trying to avoid the payment, but it's difficult, and I think that there needs to be more rigour in the ability to challenge those issues.
Murray, are there any changes you would like to have seen brought in that haven't been proposed today, just finally?
I think it comes down to checking the quality of the day-to-day operation of the... legislation's one thing, but it's got the staff implementing it must do it with integrity and straightforwardness, and I'm not criticising IRD too much, but there definitely are quite a few cases that aren't decided on the facts, and those do cause a reasonable degree of suffering.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you both very much for your time.
You.
Anthony Mahon from the Law Society and Murray Bacon, thank you.